They communicate through electrical signals and electrical signaling, and the most active that is the communication act. And I transfer and cross structures such as synapses, and that's where learning happens. That's where memories are stored. And as we were talking about in the video, that's where this pruning process goes on, and it use it or lose it process during the development of it. In fact, the structure of the brain is just packed with neurons and synapses. And also, we are very longing for connections, and we can actually see them in this beautiful graphic that's being always displayed. And brain connections link areas of the structures to each other, and those are the beautiful colors that look like hues and so on in these pathways. Those are made up of hundreds and thousands of connections from individual neurons. I have it. And I used to joke that the neurons are the stars of the universe. There are more of them. But they corrected me, the astronomers, and they said that that's true. If I look at an amazing picture in an app, I'm really looking at the axon wiring. So the brain is fundamentally unwired at the start. The brain is not fundamentally unwired at the start, but it's amazing because the hyped visual system, the eye, is not connected to the brain to start with. And the nerve cells in the eye have to roll their connections through these pathways and select the right part of the brain, namely the visual part of the brain, not the auditory part of the brain, the motor part of the brain. So the wiring from the very beginning is very highly organized. And the formation of these long tracks and pathways is dictated by very strict cues, unlike pathways with, or even roads, streets, and even on them. Growing connections with the growing axons follow these pathways and pali, and once connections form between these long distance regions. So this period of overproduction pruning that we talked about is a period of wool by the use of the 10-minute experiences themselves. They're both heart wiring and hearts followed by and remodeling neuroplasticity that really persists to some extent throughout your life. So building on that, if I think about building a house, I'm not gonna lay copper wires all over the place, and that don't seem to be working well. That seems to be what we're talking about, and that is inefficient. Such body weight, 20% of the blood vessels and glucose. Why is the brain doing it? So on face value, there's so much about this brain development that seems inefficient, but in actuality, it's seemingly as a path linked against the rise of the incredible capacities of the brain, especially in the case of the human. And when we're development, brain does this, overproducing these neurons and synapses. And then through experiencing and learning what's important in the environment, what synapses are getting activated, those get to stay. And everything else gets snipped away because it's inefficient to keep all of this synapses. So why would we go through all of this and pulling back? It's really at the core of what the function of the childhood. If you think about humans as a species, we are amazing in many ways. We can live anywhere on the planet. We can speak any language. We can eat food. Some of the reasons why we can do this is because of this long period of brain development that we have. The brain overproduces, like throwing a big fishing net out into the ocean, because you're not sure which house you're going to end up in, which language people go, and people are going to be speaking. So you're ready and got your bases covered, and depending on dependent. And the signals are coming into the brain is learning, I'm going to keep these synapses, but I'm going to get rid of the other ones. If I'm growing up in a Japanese household, I'm going to hold on to the synapses that help me understand Chinese. I'm going to get rid of the other support and allow it. So this really is the developmental period that gives rise to our incredible adaptation to our particular environments. So this new concept will get read into sizing and this need to balance the stability and the plasticity, and tell you more about the history of that concert. There are lots of new developments. Many of the ideas are not fundamentally new. We have the tools to actually test the concepts. The first person to speak about neuroplasticity and stability as a German applied to human development is William James, a psychologist that lived in the 1890s. He wrote about the plasticity and its properties of substance and organ, presumably the brain, and it enabled us as humans to do certain behaviors and become really good at it. And some of these developments were in the brain structure itself. They were amazing. Properties giving hints and influencing, not giving in all at once. You want to have some neuroplasticity, but not too much. You want the right kind. You want the right amount. And presumably, Veronica Halden, not much longer, started to look, where does this actually happen in the brain? He described the synapses and the chain, the connectivity, the change of how it affects and making new ones as a substrate for that neuroplasticity that James was talking about. So the ideas are 100 years old, and we're all studying medicine. And things don't change in the brain, because when you get old, you get tough. And then you get old. I hope to get there one day. And I hope I'll start a new batch with always knowing in my heart that as an old dog, I can learn new tricks even today. Even though I'm against these experiences of being everybody, it's still possible to learn new stuff. How does it gel together? Right. Going back to this concept of critical periods, we all manage children and a lot easier than adults. Some of these examples that you see in your work with the children, for a while, people are thinking that it was a critical period of the brain development in a human. And then it became clear that critical periods are really a property of developing neural circuits. And if that is true, then maybe it's appropriate to think of each neural circuit that we have as an undergoing critical period of the moment. And often people use this for critical periods as a window of opportunity, opening up when the environment can really give us the biggest impact on the nature of future functioning for that system.